All of a sudden, Ohio State is into the final third of the regular season. Oh, wait a minute.
Wrong show.
Today's not Thursday. That's the wrong show. Today's Friday, baby. It is bold predictions time and the Austin and Birm Show. The beat is ready to hit the road for Ohio State and Purdue on Saturday, 1 o'clock on BTN. Weather just looks fantastic, Birm. I cannot believe it.
Does it though? I don't know.
No, it doesn't. That is my bold prediction. It is going to rain at some point during Ohio State at Purdue.
Okay, that's not really that bold. When was the last time it didn't rain on the Ohio State Purdue game day? That's what I'd like to know. In West Lafayette, that's something that's like a deep cut research analysis that people need to dive into. It seems like it's rains there every year, but hey, it's fine. We'll be fine. Ohio State's going to be fine. Weather's not a big deal. This team is built for all terrain, all weather, all problems. It
is. They are those Buckeyes, the number one Buckeyes, are favored to win by 29.5 on Saturday at West Lafayette. Over under at 48.5. So it's a Freaky Friday. It's bold predictions, and we have to kick it off as always with our latest and greatest updated score predictions. And I'm going to say, Birm, I think Purdue weather and Ohio State's tempo means this one's probably going to be under for me, but I don't think Purdue is going to score.
What's the over under?
48.5. So that's a projected ballpark score of around 39-10, according to the experts.
My brain, I don't entirely remember what I said score prediction on Monday when we.
Well, that's why I said they're updated scores.
And the more I think about it, I've got 38-9 Ohio State. So that puts me at 47.
Giving a lot of credit to those books, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got 38-9. I think we're going to see Purdue in field goal range a few times, and maybe a long field goal here or there. Now, in the past, we've seen games where Ohio State opponents have kicked long field goals to try and avoid shutouts and made them. We've seen other games when they missed them. So I could see it going the other way. I don't think Purdue's going to score a touchdown. I want to say that. Okay. But give me 38-9 Ohio State.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to get in and out of this one. 42-0 is what I will be projecting. And it is a little bit of a bold prediction still, even though Purdue was just shut out by Northwestern a couple of weeks ago, even though we've seen Ohio State already post multiple shutouts this season. They're still rare. They're still very difficult to come by. So if I think that counts as a little spice in the pepper just to say that Purdue's not going to score, because you know what? That's very difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's only been one game this year where Purdue didn't score, right? So now that was 2 weeks ago. They scored 30 points against Notre Dame earlier this year. So they've shown some life offensively, 27 against Illinois. I mean, they've done some things. 17 against USC, but Ohio State is a little bit of a different animal. And, I think that's what really sets up is interesting. Purdue turns the ball over a lot. They get sacked a lot. Their best player, as we've talked about all week, as you've mocked me about, Devin Mockabee is out for the
pun intended,
out for the season. Their leading receiver has 50 catches on the year. He's done, he's been pretty good. They actually seem to have a handful of guys who are averaging 15, 16 yards of completion. So Ryan Brown, while he's been inconsistent, like they are pushing the ball down the field when he has time to throw it. So that's why I think what really shapes up for an interesting game plan for Matt Patricia and Ohio State is how much do you let him do that? How comfortable do you let them be? How aggressive do you get with the pass rush? Because I think this is a game where Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, et cetera, could really get loose.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue's best offensive weapon actually plays for Ohio State, but I suspect we will get to that as we dive into the bold predictions, but not right away, because there's a fascinating contrast, a little bit of debate between which of our bold predictions in the backfield is actually going to come true, as you kick it off with what?
Isaiah West, I think, is up for a big game for the Buckeyes. I don't know exactly what that means for other running backs. I just feel like the momentum for Isaiah West is there. He had a really nice early 11-yard carry against Penn State, and then he kind of disappeared for the rest of the game, not on because he didn't play well when he played, but just because they didn't really play him much after that point as James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson and Bo Jackson all took their turns. I think that we're entering a game stretch for Ohio State where they really have to decide who the running backs are and stick with them. And I know that there's some back and forth conversation about it. Do you have to narrow it down to two guys? Can you last year, I was looking at it on Thursday morning, and I think it's somewhat interesting. Last year, through 8 games, the Ohio State primary running tandem of Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins had 1,109 yards rushing through 8 games, which is really not that crazy when you think about it.
I would have thought it would have been more.
But this year's quartet actually has more yards rushing than those two did through 8 games last year. Not by much, by 33 yards. But, Bo Jackson with 538 yards has 40 more yards than Travion Henderson had at this point in last season. So, they're finding ways, and they are clearly establishing a pecking order that says Bo Jackson's at the top, but then everything else is sort of a quagmire beneath it. I just think it's time. And again, we all see it. Everybody sees it. When Isaiah and Bo are on the field, it looks different. And that's not to say James Peoples, who obviously had a good week of practice and is running hard, and he's averaging 5 yards a carry in limited time. But Bo Jackson is the guy. Isaiah West is pushing. James Peoples is not particularly adept at pass pro or any of that, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to have him be your third down guy or your short yardage guy, because that's where CJ Donaldson still excels. I just don't know how many carries are still need to be out there for other guys at this point. So all of that, long story short, to say that Jordan Marshall ran for 185 yards against Purdue last week, and I think the Buckeyes are going to run for a lot of yards this week. I think you'll have 200-yard running backs, and to me, the second 100-yard running back this week is Isaiah West, because I think he's going to have a fairly substantial load of the carries that Bo Jackson doesn't. I heard from somebody this week that what the Buckeyes think might be the best long-term split is 40% of the carries for Bo Jackson and 40% of the carries for Isaiah West. And then you break down the other 20% with the other two guys. So if it gets to that point over the next few weeks, I think that's great. I think it has to, and I think it starts Saturday. So give me Isaiah West with his first 100-yard game. He's going to have 125 yards in this game.
Whoa. Yeah, I feel like it's been a moving target about how they want to distribute those carries and even not just the touches, but actually snaps on the field, because as you mentioned, pass protection is so critical. Ohio State wants those running backs to be, they can rely on them. They need to. And we've seen all of them make the most and sometimes not make the most of those reps. It's been inconsistent in that part of the game, which is why I think the breakdown has shifted. And I can't figure out if it was a little bit of an injury concern, if it was a little bit of the all-around game, why Isaiah West didn't play more last week against Penn State, because, we all saw the 11-yard carry and him running over people and exploding through contact. And it's okay, you can parlay that with Bo Jackson and it's going to be really dangerous. So I have a little bit of skepticism in my mind, because I'm not sure if it is one or both of those things that kept him off the field in the second half against Penn State when James Peoples started getting a little bit more run. Now, it was 5 touches. It's not that much. And maybe I'm also making too big of a deal of what I thought was Penn State being locked in as soon as people stepped on the field, and he was the decoy on the play action throw to Carnell Tate for the touchdown. It's I think that there's something there, and I continue to put that in that same sophomore slump and then surge conversation that we've been having with Edric Houston. I think that's distinctly possible for James Peoples, and if he was able to glom on to a little bit of momentum from the work that he got against Penn State, there are so many opportunities to run the football against Purdue. This is one of the worst rush defenses in the Big Ten and in the country. The teams have just abandoned any attempt to even throw the football on them because they don't need to. And I think that, as I mentioned on Thursday and throughout the week, this is a game where I probably will put a little bit more stock in the way Ohio State runs the ball, because we're getting into November. We're within eye shot of the game, and you could kind of just, I think, brush it aside. It wasn't the biggest emphasis throughout those first 2 months of the season. We could see that there was room to grow. This is where that growth does need to show up. And maybe James Peoples won't be the solution. Maybe you are 100% correct with your bold P, and that Isaiah West will be that counterpoint to Bo Jackson. That won't surprise me, but it also wouldn't shock me if James Peoples responds to the challenge that has been issued to him by Carlos Lachlan, by Ryan Day, and by the surge from those freshmen, and comes out and puts together a performance where he has 80 yards rushing and finds the end zone for Ohio State.
Yeah, it's obvious that Ryan Day is trying to push James Peoples along. The words that he used on Tuesday, Spencer Holbrook from Letterman Row asked about it, and Day said, that he saw some of his practicing better, had some good energy, and working hard in practice and doing all the right things. And like, that's what you want to see. And sometimes, as we saw with Tegra Shabola last week, sometimes it's the fear or the realization that you're having a fire lit under you that maybe you didn't expect when the season began. That was really,
or you're going to be replaced,
right?
Like,
so it's there for James Peoples. The question is, how many carries does he get? And when you were talking about a team that a week ago ran the ball 32 times, Peoples had 5 carries, Isaiah West had 4 carries, Bo Jackson had 13, 9 for CJ Donaldson. Like, it's clear to me that CJ Donaldson's role is being carved out for him when it comes to short yardage and stuff like that. Now, again, maybe that is something that people will scoff at after the fumble last week against Penn State when he's put in the game almost exclusively to protect the ball. So that was difficult to swallow for Ohio State. But with Peoples,
but they didn't bench him, and they put him back.
They didn't bench him. He went out there the next time at the goal line and scored a touchdown in the next series. So it is an interesting conversation, and it's one that we talked about on the drive back from Penn State on Saturday night from the game. Like, who's really in charge of the rotation at running backs? Because I'm hearing different things. I'm hearing conflicting sides of that, and we've seen Ryan Day throughout his career at Ohio State always say that the position coach has say over who's playing, but we also know that the head coach has the ability to veto anything. So it does seem interesting because I think everyone sees it, and just because everyone sees Isaiah West and Bo Jackson being maybe the best ceiling for this running back group doesn't mean there's not a role for the other guys. So Purdue is going to give up a lot of yards on the ground and through the air against Ohio State. So there's an opportunity for James Peoples, especially if he plays a lot in the second half, to easily get that 85 yards.
Well, that is the interesting dynamic, right? With Ryan Day in the CEO role, is that before, if you were worried about getting into the call sheet on third down and Ryan Day is trying to get helmet communication or signal in plays, like delegating personnel responsibility and rotation to the position coaches may have made a lot more sense. But when you're talking about ultimate veto power, probably a world where Ryan Day is paying more attention to that, not just at running back, but every position on the field. And if he doesn't ultimately sign off on that, like, he's the one in charge of everyone being on the field at this point. He, from week to week, could certainly be in the meeting room and say, hey, let's not do it this way, whether that's to Carlos Lachlan or anybody else in that position room. So we'll see what that means, because this is another game where you could see all 4 guys having an opportunity to play and run the football against Purdue. So there'll be a little bit.
We're going to see all 4. The question is how much. I mean, that we know that they are committed to getting all 4 on the field. The question is, how do you decide what's the right amount for each guy? And does Bo Jackson need to play in the second half against Purdue? Hopefully not.
But he's also a true freshman, and
who played 4 games as a senior in high school, so he should be pretty fresh. So it's a weird catch-22.
Yeah, all of it is. Catch 86. How about that, Birm? Max Klare returning. You've hinted at it all week. You're projecting a big game along the lines of Carnell Tate returning to Chicago and the couple touchdowns he had against Northwestern last year. I know that you're expecting a big game from Max Klare and his return to West Lafayette.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State, as I said, they seem to be very aware of these sorts of things. We've seen it over the years, like whenever there's a road game and they're playing at a stadium or in a state where an Ohio State player is from, that guy gets to go out and talk to the media, and it's a cool thing for these guys. Max Klare is not from Indiana, let's be clear. He's from Cincinnati, but Cincinnati, I guess parts of it feels like Indiana. Some of it feels like Kentucky. Almost none of it feels like Ohio, which is weird.
It's a melting pot
about Cincinnati. But regardless, I think that this is a big game for Max Klare. I think he's going to score 3 touchdowns against
Purdue.
And
triple ding dong.
I think we're looking at a 6-catch, 80+ yards, 3 touchdown day for Max Klare against his former team. It's not going to be like we're going to rub it in and throw. I just don't think you can cover this guy if you're Purdue when you're going to try to figure out ways to limit Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith and the Heisman push for those guys. You can't limit the Heisman push for Julian Sand. They're going to try to get after Julian. They're going to blitz him a lot. It's going to open up the middle of the field, because if you leave the perimeter of the field covered in man coverage, you're going to give up long touchdowns. And I don't think Purdue wants to do that. So that means a lot of work in the middle of the field for Brandon Ennis and Max Klare. I think this is a Max Klare game. 6 catches, 80+ yards, 3 touchdowns as Max Klare goes home and reminds Purdue that, or gives thanks to Purdue and says, hey, well, we appreciate what you did for me, but now I'm playing real football.
Yeah. I'm trying to work through your score prediction and how this is going to work. So Isaiah West's going to have 125. Did you say he was going to score?
Nope.
No. Okay. He's going to step out at the 1 every time so they can set up Max Klare for a score. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think he's going to have a big game. 3 touchdowns would probably be a little bit spicier than I would want to be. But we've seen it before, the concerted effort. It couldn't have been more obvious the way Ohio State was involving Carnell Tate last year, because it was like out of character for the number of targets and the way he was being used. Like, we got to get this guy a celebration, and Max Klare's deserved it. I think the work he's put in to fit in and acclimate to Ohio State and to become an all-around tight end is worthy of that. And Ohio State is not ashamed or embarrassed or shy about trying to force feed opportunities to celebrate to its players. It did it that last week with a tight end and Bennett Christian, to say, hey, you've been blocking really hard, you've been influential behind the scenes, and here's a little treat for you in the end zone. So I think that'll probably happen for sure with Max Klare.
It's kind of another catch-22, because Ryan Day, like we've heard him all week talk about Barry Odom and the relationship he has with Barry Odom, and like when Ryan starts to really like talk about how much he respects another coach and how much he like that's when we see him kind of dial it back at times. So it's like there's going to be these two competing interests of like, get Max the ball, be respectful, and then what happens. So I don't think it's going to be like hey, we're just going to chuck it to Max 30 times in this game. It's going to happen naturally, and Julian Sand is going to see him be open and is just going to have to throw him the ball. So I think it's where it's going to be. I could pare this down and say 3 total tight end touchdowns in the game and 2 for Max, but like I think he's going to have a long one, similar to like the spring game touchdown he had, the seam shot. I think he's in a position in this game to get one of those, and then a couple inside of the red zone.
Well, he's a seam demon.
Seam demon.
Oh, what?
He's seeming.
Yeah, sure. I didn't do it. I didn't double down on it the way you did. That is,
he's seeming the defense.
Is he now? Okay.
Obviously. Big day for Max Klare. That's the point.
Okay. Well said, my friend. Well said. I'm going to shift over to the defense. I have 2 defensive bold predictions. I need to, because I predicted a shutout. And normally this would be the spot where I rave about how dominant Caden McDonald is. I point to, a couple games with 8 tackles already, how it's impossible to run up the middle against Ohio State right now, especially because Tywone Malone is also elevating and you have Edric Houston back on the rise. But I'm not going to do that. I'm still going to talk about Will Smith Jr., because if this game plays out the way I expect it to, the other part about the statistical output and the production that Caden McDonald gave Ohio State last week against Penn State was that he played a career high in snaps. And he does not need to do that against Purdue. He probably won't need to do that against UCLA. He certainly shouldn't against Rutgers. Ohio State's going to need him to play a lot of snaps starting at the end of the month in the Big House, what I expect to be the following week in Indianapolis in the Big Ten Championship game, and in the college football playoff. So if you can sneak a few reps off of his broad shoulders this week, that would be great. And Will Smith is certainly another guy who goes right into this conversation. We spent a long time in the offseason speculating and prognosticating and projecting what was going to happen at nose, at 3 Tech, if they were.
You mean worrying? We were worrying.
There was some of that too. We talked a lot about it, and there were a lot of different ways to describe the conversations we had, and it didn't really resonate until like late July. People started saying, you know what, Will Smith is having a really good offseason, and part of it is because of the injuries that he suffered, early on in his career at Ohio State. Wasn't able to get out there. He was just out of sight, out of mind. And then even though he's been key in this rotation, you look at the box score statistically, it hasn't flashed that he is making a regular impact. But Ohio State clearly trusts him a lot. And I think that they will use him significantly against Purdue to take some of that load away from Caden McDonald. And I think that Will Smith is going to have 5 tackles and 2 of them for a loss in this game. You can say that feels like a modest prediction, not all that bold, but I think he might out-snap Caden McDonald in this game, which is not something that I that's not Ohio State at its best, but it is going to be a reflection of the score here and maybe even an emphasis to not just get Caden McDonald some rest, but to further elevate that depth, whether that's Edric Houston or Will Smith or Jarquez Carter. Yeah, I think this is the game where we might see more defensive line rotation, and I know that this will surprise some people, but I'm actually all for that in this scenario.
Ohio State only has 8 players with a sack this season, which to me feels kind of, I don't know. I guess I'm not paying attention to every team around the country and how many individuals have recorded a sack, but I wonder.
Just not playing that many snaps. We haven't talked about this, Berm. We break it down a lot on the offensive side. This defense gets so many 3 and outs. Statistically, there aren't a lot of opportunities for them to really run it up.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if Will gets into that backfield this weekend and has that opportunity to really cause some chaos. I think he can. He did play really well against Penn State. Maybe, unfortunately, the genetics are really amazing because much like his father, Will Smith Jr. also cannot draw a hold. So I didn't expect that to be something that would be passed down from genealogy, but apparently it has been.
That's just the jersey you play in. That's actually not genetics.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Maybe they'll get one of those this week. I don't know. It's been 2 years since Ohio State opponent has had a defensive line hold called against them or something in the Big Ten. So it's a big week for Will, but I think you're right in that this is an opportunity for Ohio State to really give some people some rest. And it's a talking point I wrote about on Letterman Row on Thursday, and it's not really relevant to this conversation with Caden McDonald or even Will Smith, but you wonder with the awards push that Ohio State's going into, this is, I guess, a digression. How much does Ryan Day lean into that in a game where he has so much respect for the opponent? And how much do they say, hey, Caden only needs to play 25 snaps this game, let's get him out? And that's the same conversation with Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate or Julian Sayin, because you've got 4 games left to get yourselves in position to really capitalize on the award buzz. And then you go into a game like this where you don't know what the weather's going to be. You don't know what the wind's going to be. You don't want to run up the score. You don't want to risk injury. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. But then you still have to find a way to make sure that your guys are getting the reps that they need and the opportunities they need to turn some heads. So for Caden McDonald, who's been an all Big Ten level, all American level defensive tackle this season, like you don't want to take too much away from him because you want to keep that momentum going. But you're right, like with Jarquez, with Taiwan Malone, with Edric needing to get back to the full-time rotation, it does seem like this is an opportunity for those guys to do that.
Yeah, and especially because all-time Purdue legend Devin Maccabee's not playing. That running game shouldn't be quite as difficult to shut down for Ohio State this week, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree, because Devin Maccabee's pretty good.
He's a legend, and no one disputes that.
He's 4th all time in Purdue in the history of rushing.
I literally just called him a legend. What more do you want from me?
I mean, he's just behind Otis Armstrong, and if he would have been playing all season, he would have passed Mike Allstott as the school's all-time leading rusher. So he's pretty good. You know who else is pretty good? Jermaine Matthews. He needs to touch the football this week. I want to see a Jermaine Matthews celebration for a touchdown. I need that
would be an all-timer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we need to see what that celebration is going to be like. He's had plays this year where he's made big plays for other people and the strip sack against Illinois and done some things. He was talking on Wednesday night about how a few weeks back, Davis Igbinosun was screaming, "Stop throwing at me, stop throwing at me." And Jermaine was asked if he gets a similar vibe, like, "Hey, stop throwing at me." And he's like, "No, I want them to throw at me because then it's fun." So, like, Ryan Brown has thrown 7 interceptions. Malachi Singleton, the backup quarterback for Purdue, has thrown a couple. They've turned it over a lot. They find a way to give you the football if you can keep pressure on their quarterbacks. And that's why I think, again, Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, the rest of Arvell Reese, I think this is a big week for the Buckeyes blitzers. And I think that opens the door for some late throws or some hurried throws or some throws over the middle across your body. The things that quarterback coaches are constantly saying, don't do that. I think Ryan Brown is going to do. And I think Jermaine Matthews is going to be the recipient of that. I also think he's going to have a sack this week. So the stat line for Jermaine is an interception. It's a pick 6 and a sack and a fumble recovery somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from, But Jermaine's going to have a big day, and he deserves it. The excitement he brings, the energy he brings. I think we, as a watching collective, want to be able to see what that's going to look like when he crosses the goal line for the first time since his freshman year. And now that he's like feeling himself a little bit, I think that celebration is going to be absurd.
All right, so it sounds like you are a little bit influenced by the Wednesday night conversation and a Woody Wednesday. And you know that I'm a sucker for that. If somebody comes off the practice field and says anything to me that might tip me one direction or another for a bold prediction, I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to run with it. And someone told you and me, you should have seen Arvell Reese at practice on Wednesday night. It was something to behold. And I said, I would very much like to see that practice film. Can I sign up for that? Is there a way that I can get my hands on it? I enjoy watching what he does on Saturdays a lot. I wonder what it's like, what he's doing in practice, because it's been 3 months since we've seen that. Those first couple practices, he didn't have full pads on, but he was still disruptive, even just standing out there at 8 feet tall and bulletproof. And so the indication of what he might be able to do to Purdue certainly has me projecting a similar stat line that you have for Jermaine Matthews. And I don't know that we're going to need to see number 8 in the third quarter. So maybe Matt Patricia will dial up some of these opportunities early and often so that they can, again, he's in the mix for the Buckeyes here, the Lombardi, the everything else. The draft buzz is building to him be a top 5, top 10 pick. And Ohio State will want to help Arvell Reese accomplish all of those goals. And that means blitzing. I think that might mean faking some blitzes to bait some of those throws that you talked about from Ryan Brown. And I think that Arvell Reese is going to stuff the stat sheet in every single way. He will have a sack. That sack is going to force a fumble. He's going to recover it. He's going to drop into coverage. He's going to intercept a pass. And he's going to finish with 8 tackles. And all of that will be done in the first half. So this is an Arvell Reese special for me.
An Arvell
Marvel.
An Arvell Marvel. Let's see. Here's the thing about Arvell Reese. We talk so much, and there's been so much discussion at Ohio State in the last 5 days, especially since Saturday's post game with Ryan Day, talking about Julian Sayin, talking about Carnell and Jeremiah and the awards. The guy that's like most likely to win an Ohio State award right now is Arvell Reese. Like I don't know how anybody in the country could be considered the favorite for the Buckeyes award if he's not. And it's been 18 years since Ohio State last won that award, and that was James Laurinaitis, obviously. So the opportunity for Arvell is there. He's like the viral sensation of every single college football weekend at this juncture. And you can't discount that sort of publicity and what it means for the voters of awards, because every Sunday you see every NFL draft expert being like, here's the Arvell Reese clip of the week. Like, they're just in love with the guy. And you don't blame him, because Arvell is an absolute freak. He has put himself into a conversation that is exceedingly rare. I mean, you're talking about a guy that was not a starter a year ago and is now likely going to be a top 5 pick and maybe the first defensive player picked in the NFL draft next year. It's pretty amazing. I hate being wrong about things, because I swore up and down he'd be the second pick in the draft from Ohio State next year, and now it's looking like he's going to be the first, and that's making.
And it's not like Caleb Downs has done anything wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable how good he is. But you hope he doesn't have to play in the second half in this game. This is a game where you'd really like to see Riley Pettijohn and even TJ Alford get some reps and get out there and get some runs. So hopefully Arvell. You know what's crazy is that the sack he had last Saturday against Ethan Grunkmeyer, that Ethan Grunkmeyer held onto that football. I was like, I couldn't believe that. I don't think Ryan Brown can hold on to that football. So.
No, I don't think he will, especially because it's probably going to be a driving rainstorm and the wind will be blowing, and it'll be tough to hold on to the football if you have Arvell Reese and Caleb Downs running after you. And this defense is pretty good. So we'll see how that looks. I, again, think that is going to be 42-0. You said
38-9.
38-9. So we've got that to look forward to. The Austin Birm Show hitting the road later on Friday to get over. We'll be setting up camp in Indianapolis before heading up to West Lafayette on Saturday, where we'll have some pregame keys. We'll be checking that availability report to see what's going on, if we can get game time decisions or officially out on anybody here, mostly on that offensive line, to see what's going on with the guard situation. But that will be the next time that you hear from us, and we're looking forward to it. It is game number 9 for Ohio State. This season is going fast, but we are having a great time. We hope you've been enjoying the content as well on 97.1, 10 TV Plus, and anywhere you're getting your podcasts. Have a fantastic weekend. Make sure you note it. 1 o'clock, BTN, Ohio State at Purdue. For Birm, I'm Austin. We'll see you there.